hard to believe that just 3 years ago we thought we would build a happy life together. Back then I met Nathan at a party hosted by a mutual friend. I attended out of obligation, not wanting to decline the warm invitation. As for Nathan, he was there only because he had promised his friends. Neither of us felt like we belonged in that noisy space, and perhaps it was our shared sense of detachment that brought us together. At the time, Nathan was a quiet yet thoughtful man. Our conversations started with simple topics, from hobbies to childhood memories, gradually evolving into deeper discussions about the future. I once believed I had found in Nathan a sense of peace, a life partner with whom I could build a home. We got married just a few weeks after meeting. Everything happened so quickly, but I didn't feel worried. On the contrary, I felt like I was living in a beautiful dream, where Nathan and I would write our own story together. However, only about a month after moving in together, Nathan began to change. He was no longer the gentle and warm man I had fallen in love with. Long evenings waiting for him to come home turned into monotonous routines, and eventually everything came crashing down one unassuming evening. "Emma, I want you to quit your job," Nathan said, his voice so firm that I froze in place. "What? Why?" I asked, searching his eyes for a reasonable explanation. "When you work, I feel like I have no role in this family," Nathan replied, his eyes betraying a hint of insecurity. "At my company, all my colleagues' wives stay home to take care of the family. I don't want to be the odd one out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Since when had Nathan become so preoccupied with how others perceived him? We had once agreed that I would continue working, that we would strive together toward our shared goals. But now, he wanted me to give up everything just because of meaningless societal expectations? "I need time to think," I said, not wanting to make a hasty decision. But time didn't help. Nathan kept applying pressure, openly expressing his disappointment every time I hesitated. Every morning he sat on the sofa, his cold gaze following my every move as I got ready for work. Sometimes he would make remarks that I didn't love our family enough, that I was too selfish for focusing only on my career. I felt cornered. My job was not only a source of income but also a place where I found my self-worth, my independence, and my freedom. Yet to Nathan it seemed that my work only made him feel threatened. I turned to Sophie, my manager, for advice. She had gone through an unhappy marriage, and her story made me realize I wasn't alone. "You don't have to give up what you love just to please someone else," Sophie said, her eyes filled with determination. "If you don't stand your ground now, things will only get much harder later on." Sophie's words were like a glimmer of light in the darkness. I started thinking about finding a temporary solution, maybe working part-time or even remotely. But deep down I knew the problem wasn't with my job. It was with Nathan's change. I tried to stay calm as I sat across from Nathan in our small kitchen. The morning sunlight filtered through the window, stretching across the old wooden table, but it wasn't enough to dispel the heavy atmosphere surrounding us. Nathan sat on the other side, stirring his coffee, his gaze distant. "I've thought about it," I spoke up, breaking the prolonged silence. "I'll reduce my work hours to part-time so I can spend more time at home, just like you wanted." Nathan looked up at me, a faint relief in his eyes, though his expression remained cautious. "Really? You'll do that?" "Yes," I nodded, forcing a genuine smile. "I've talked to Sophie at work. She agreed to let me switch to 4 days a week, only from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. That way I can still help you with dinner and take care of the house." Nathan put down his spoon, his expression softening. "I really appreciate this, Emma. I knew you'd understand me." Inside I felt a mix of relief and unease. I had temporarily calmed him down, but I couldn't help worrying about what would come next. I had learned how to say what Nathan wanted to hear while quietly making my own plans. In reality, I still kept my full-time job. I only officially reduced my work hours while taking on additional remote projects. Sophie understood my situation and agreed to help me keep this a secret. She had been through a similar situation herself, so she completely sympathized with me. For the first few weeks, everything went smoothly. Nathan seemed pleased to see me at home more often, but then he started making other demands. He frequently invited colleagues and friends over on weekends, expecting me to prepare meals and host them attentively. "You just need to make a few simple dishes, nothing too fancy," he said, but whenever guests arrived, his eyes were full of expectation. Gradually, these gatherings became a routine. Once a week, then twice. Weekends, instead of being a time to rest, turned me into a server in my own home. Nathan wanted everything to be perfect, from the food to the table settings. Whenever something didn't meet his expectations, he wouldn't hesitate to criticize me in front of the guests, making me feel like a stranger in my own family. Things only got worse when I started noticing strange signs. Nathan's clothes occasionally had a sweet perfumed scent that wasn't mine. Whenever I asked about it, he would just laugh it off, saying it was from a female colleague accidentally brushing against him. Then there were the late-night calls and messages when he came home late or claimed he had unexpected work. One night, when Nathan fell asleep on the couch, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Jessica, but when I reached to silence it, a message appeared. "I miss you. When are you coming over?" My heart sank. All my lingering doubts were confirmed in that single moment. I began paying closer attention to Nathan's actions. He frequently went out in the evenings, using work or meeting friends as an excuse. Once, when he said he was going to a meeting with his boss, I called his office to ask a minor question, and received the response, "Nathan took the day off today." The feeling of betrayal crept into every corner of my heart, but I didn't want to confront the truth without clear evidence. So I started keeping track of Nathan's late arrivals, the suspicious messages, and even took pictures of the faint lipstick marks on his shirt collar. Finally, the truth could no longer be hidden. One evening, as Nathan stepped into the house, he threw his jacket onto the chair and said directly to my face, "You need to leave. I'll change the locks tomorrow." I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," Nathan said coldly. "We're done. Pack your things. I don't want to see you here when I get back." I tried to stay calm, but inside a storm was raging. "It's because of her, isn't it, Jessica?" Nathan's face changed for a brief moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "Stop pretending you know everything. It's best if you go before things get more complicated." I stood there speechless. The images of this home, the memories and the promises we once made seemed to dissolve in an instant. It turned out all my efforts were merely prolonging a marriage that had died long ago. "Fine," I said, my voice even. "I'll go, but you will regret this." Nathan just shrugged as if my words held no weight. He turned away, leaving me standing there, alone, in what had once been our home. But I knew that if I left this time, I would not come back. I would not allow myself to be a victim of betrayal and manipulation. And more than anything, I would make sure Nathan paid for what he had done. I started packing my things not because I was afraid or weak, but because I was ready for a new beginning, one where I would no longer be a shadow of someone else. I began gathering my belongings in the house that was once considered my home. Everything around me felt like scattered pieces of a puzzle devoid of any warmth. The wedding photos, the small decorative items I had once carefully placed, were now just lifeless objects. I didn't cry, nor did I feel the pain I had imagined. Maybe it was because my emotions had long since run dry. As the sunset painted the room in soft orange hues, I sat at my desk, carefully reviewing the divorce papers. I had prepared everything in advance, from financial documents to the evidence of Nathan's affair with Jessica. I needed to handle everything quickly and neatly, just like how Nathan had coldly asked me to leave. The next morning, I sent the divorce papers through my lawyer and left the place I once called home. I didn't say a word to Nathan, nor did I leave any trace behind. Just a few days later, I received a call from my lawyer informing me that Nathan had received the divorce documents. He didn't react much, only asked me to move out as soon as possible, so he could rearrange his new life. I moved into a small apartment in the suburbs. The new place wasn't large, but it was airy and filled with light. From the living room window, I could see rows of green trees and feel the fresh breeze every morning. I decided to return to full-time work at the company, and Sophie and my colleagues welcomed me warmly. Living independently brought me a rare sense of freedom. I no longer worried about what others thought or whether I was fulfilling the wife role that Nathan had once imposed on me. I took time for myself, attended yoga classes, met up with friends, and savored every peaceful moment. But then, one Saturday morning, as I lazily curled up in my blanket, the doorbell rang. I glanced at the front door camera, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw Nathan standing there. He looked worn out, his clothes wrinkled and his hair disheveled, as if he hadn't slept for many nights. "Emma, open the door, it's me, Nathan." His voice came through the intercom, a mix of pleading and desperation. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. In an even tone, I replied through the speaker system, "Sorry, you've got the wrong person. I don't know who you are." Stop joking, Emma. I need to talk to you, please, Nathan begged, his eyes staring straight into the camera, as if trying to see through the glass to find me. You've got the wrong address. I'm not Emma, and I don't know you, I responded, maintaining my indifferent tone. Nathan seemed confused. He looked around and pressed the doorbell again. Don't do this. I've lost everything, Jessica. She deceived me. I have nowhere else to go. Is that so? But what does that have to do with me? I'm not the person you're looking for. I watched Nathan through the screen, seeing how truly miserable he looked. Everything he once took pride in had now become nothing but shattered pieces. From his voice, I knew that Jessica had abandoned him after taking nearly all of his savings. After a while, realizing I had no intention of opening the door, Nathan sat down on the porch steps. He mumbled something to himself, but I didn't care. I just needed him to leave. After about 15 minutes, Nathan stood up, his demeanor utterly defeated. Before leaving, he turned to look into the camera one last time, as if hoping I would change my mind. But of course I remained silent. When Nathan finally disappeared from view, I let out a sigh of relief, but just a few minutes later my phone rang. It was Deborah, Nathan's mother. Emma, I heard Nathan came to see you. Is he okay? Her voice was filled with concern. Yes, he just left. But don't worry, I didn't open the door, I replied. You did the right thing. I told him the house now belongs to you. I transferred ownership to you as soon as I learned about his affair with Jessica, Deborah said, her voice carrying a mix of regret and helplessness. I was silent for a moment. I knew Deborah was unhappy with Nathan's actions, but I never expected her to make such a decision. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll take good care of this house, I said, a deep sense of gratitude filling my heart. I know you're the only one who can preserve it. Nathan, he has to take responsibility for his own life now, Deborah sighed. After the call ended, I sat quietly in the living room. I realized that to reach this moment of peace, I had endured so much pain and disappointment. But in the end, I had found tranquility for myself. Outside the window, sunlight spread evenly over the green leaves. I sipped my tea, letting its gentle aroma fill the room. Sometimes, to find the light, we must walk through the darkest paths. And now, the road ahead of me was beginning to shine, little by little. In the days following Nathan's visit, I heard more unsettling news about him from friends and former colleagues. It turned out that not only I but also his workplace had discovered the intimate photos of him and Jessica on social media. Those pictures spread quickly, especially since Jessica had no hesitation in publicly sharing their lavish vacations and fancy dinners, proudly claiming that her boyfriend had paid for everything. The company where Nathan worked had strict ethical and employee image policies. His public display of an inappropriate personal life, especially considering he had a family, did not sit well with the management. After several warnings and no improvement, Nathan was asked to resign. Losing his job and a stable income, Nathan began to spiral into a crisis. He had once taken pride in his position, but now, he couldn't find new work with a tarnished record from his reckless actions. To make matters worse, Jessica was no longer by his side. When she realized Nathan was out of money and could no longer support her lavish spending habits, she left without a word. A mutual friend mentioned that Nathan was evicted from his rented apartment because he couldn't afford the rent. He moved from one temporary place to another, gradually becoming a lost shadow in the city where he once shined. Meanwhile, I focused on finalizing the divorce proceedings. With the support of my lawyer and undeniable evidence of Nathan's affair, I secured a settlement of up to $410,000. Additionally, through supplemental legal procedures and the lawyer's clever advice, I received another $22,000 from shared assets Nathan had previously hidden. With this money, I not only stabilized my new life but also invested in myself. I enrolled in skill development courses, expanding my career opportunities. At work, I received many compliments from colleagues and supervisors for my focus and relentless efforts. Sophie, my manager, was always there to motivate and support me whenever I felt tired. Deborah, Nathan's mother, remained in contact with me. She understood everything that had happened and often expressed regret over her son's actions. We frequently met on weekends, sharing breakfast at a small cafe near my home. She always brought homemade baked goods and shared stories about her small garden and childhood memories. "You've become so much stronger, Emma. I'm truly proud of you," she said on a cool morning as we sat by the window, watching the bustling street. I just did what was necessary, Mom. Life is too short to endure things that aren't worth it. I smiled, feeling a wave of peace wash over me. I no longer cared about Nathan. Stories about him became fewer and fewer, and eventually he completely disappeared from my life. I didn't know where he was, nor did I want to find out. What mattered most to me now was living fully in each moment. I participated in community activities, met new friends, and occasionally allowed myself to travel to places I had always dreamed of. Being single brought me a sense of freedom and self-reliance I had never experienced before. Every morning, waking up in my sunlit apartment, I felt grateful. Not because of the money I received from the divorce or the current tranquility, but because I had overcome myself, found my own path, and learned to love myself more. No matter what the past held, I knew I had moved beyond it. I was no longer the weak, dependent Emma. I was the strong Emma who knew her worth and was ready to embrace the better things ahead. Emma's story is a testament to inner strength and the value of independence. In real life, many people also face pressures from family, society, or unhealthy relationships. But like Emma, sometimes standing up and protecting yourself is the path to true happiness. Freedom, independence, and self-love not only help overcome adversity, but also open up new opportunities, bringing true peace and joy in life. Emma's story vividly demonstrates that sometimes to find true happiness, we need the courage to let go of what no longer fits. In reality, many people find themselves in similar situations, facing changes in their partners or societal expectations. However, like Emma, knowing your worth, standing firm, and seeking independence not only help you get through difficult times but also open the door to a brighter future, where true peace and freedom await.